Everybody's in for a real treat today with Tammi. Tammi and I have known each other for about 5 years. You've been a ball coach?
Yeah, a little over. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you were right after me, right about a year in the next wave after I came on.
Yes.
So, guys, let's get started. You know, we got an appointment at 12 o'clock and it's 12:01. So let's get started. So I'm going to introduce you a little bit, Tammi, and then we're going to ask you a little bit about yourself. So I met Tammi as a bold coach about 5 years ago. She is a head bold coach. So the bold coaches work underneath her. She's got, what have you got, about 5 or 6 coaches under you? 6. She's
Some
also
amazing bold coaches.
Yeah. So let me just go through her journey. She's a mega agent, rainmaker. I don't know if the team is still active. She's a full-time bold coach, a head bold coach. She's on the ALC for bolds, for the coaches bold, the coaches ALC, the CLC. She's also she just bought about 2 years ago a instructional company that teaches not licensed law. They teach all Keller Williams certified courses throughout the Carolinas.
Right.
Bought that from Holly Prescott. So she's a certifiably professional instructor, not just with bold, through this other school that she now owns. And she's done so much more. So she's won my heart and admiration. She's somebody I look up to. She inspires me all the time. So tell me how this all started. When did you get in real estate, Tammi? Tell us, everybody, a little bit about that.
Oh gosh. So Rich has known me all these years, and so now you're going to learn things that you never knew. And so my journey into real estate was that I had been a stay-at-home mom with my 2 young boys, and long story short, and it's not a story that you don't hear too often, actually. It was my husband at that point, my then husband, thought 3 people made a relationship, and I did not feel the same way. And so real estate really represented a way for me to get my boys out of that situation, because I didn't choose for them to be that same person when they got into relationships when they were older. So I viewed it that, real estate was going to be the catalyst. It was flexible. It gave me freedom, and I could make all this money, and there you go. So, yeah.
And which year did you get your license, Tammi?
17 years ago.
Okay, so you've got just a little bit of experience there, just a wee bit in 17 years. So you've been through with the agents, because when I ask agents, 80% of the licensed agents in our companies today weren't around in 2007, 8, 9, and 10. They didn't make it through the first shift. They weren't there. So they don't know what to expect. And I'm not saying that this will be like that shift. This is different. So talk a little bit about that, because you've been through both. What was different about that shift from this pivot? And what should they be doing?
Well, and it's a valid question. And this shift will be like the other shift in some ways, even though it's a health crisis that's causing it. All shifts do several things. They number one, reveal things about ourselves. And when I look at any market, like when the last shift happened, we were coming out of a really healthy market. I mean, I could have my foot on a sign in the front yard and things were selling, which is kind of what we just did. Right. And all of a sudden what happens is when a market shifts, and it shifts dramatically because the pendulum just swings, and all of a sudden there it is. And that's what happened to us here. The shadow that is kind of cast over all of our bad habits or the things that don't serve us very well, all of a sudden are like highlighted under a spotlight. And so there's some great things that come out of this. There's always opportunity, and the opportunity is to dig deep and do the right things and go back to the fundamentals. And I'll tell you, I had just gotten newly remarried in the last one. And, I came home from Orlando, family reunion, and the next day I was on a listing appointment, and my then new husband, well, he's still my new husband. How about that one? I shouldn't say then. Yeah, he's still around.
He's a keeper.
I don't have ex-husbands in the backyard somewhere. And yeah, no. So, excuse me, I'm on a listing appointment, and I hear my phone is in my purse, and I didn't have it on silent. It kept dinging like a text message. And so I got in the car and looked at it, and it was Bruce letting me know that he had just lost his job. And excuse me, he was working for a new home builder. Well, Rich, I mean, from back then, the builders all but just dried up. I mean, it was like, And so that's what he did. He was a regional sales manager managing on-site salespeople. And all of a sudden, here we were, all eggs in one basket, and that one basket was my business. And so he's got a degree in IT, and we kind of said, all right, do you do IT? Do you do real estate? What do you do? And I think logically, most people would have said he should absolutely go do IT and not jump into real estate. And we did the illogical thing and threw him into real estate. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest blessings of this company is what you all are experiencing right now is how in times like this, times of crisis, we come together. And that was no different then. So when Bruce joined me, I basically said, honey, I don't have time to train you. Like, I have to go make a living so that we can pay our house payment and keep our cars. And you just need to go to all the education that the Market Center has to offer. And we turned the news off. It's basically negative news all the time. And it was just killing our mindset. And I will tell you, I don't watch it now either. I turned it back off again. I know enough to know, because of the health pandemic, what's going on. However, again, you can only have so much of that negativity poured into you, and it becomes harder and harder to overcome it. And so we literally just did, head down, like Gary says, right? Heart up. And we weren't creative, Rich. I mean, we just did the fundamentals, and we did them at a high level. I mean, it was just literally all hands on deck, and it's what we did. And we walked the stage that year for our region. And we didn't even know that was even coming. I mean, it was all about survival. And what ends up happening is you come out so much stronger on the other end of this. And I had already built the team coming into that. And when it all first happened, I let everybody go on the team except him. I couldn't really let him go.
Sure.
Yeah, that was a joke. And I had 2 admin, and I kept the admin because I learned early on that was not my thing. And that was it. And so it literally was the 2 admin and the 2 of us. And there you have it. So I'll tell you guys, I mean, the biggest thing coming out of something like that was the ability to create and follow a schedule. And I know that this is not anything new. I was thinking about this morning, Rich. I was thinking about, what are we going to talk about? And, the biggest thing is we get into this for the exact reason that I said, flexibility and freedom. And we embrace those at a really high level, where before, when we were working for somebody else was dictating our schedule, right? And if we didn't follow that schedule, and we didn't have, my allergies are like killing me, sorry. And we didn't have results, and we weren't producing for them, we wouldn't have a job. And then all of a sudden we get into this, and we embrace this flexibility and freedom, and there's no schedule. There's just nobody telling us what to do. And that's the greatest gift that you could all give yourselves right now, is take this opportunity to slow down and create a schedule that reflects your goals and where you choose to be, and then follow it. I mean, even if you have to, move things around and adjust things because you have spouses at home, or there's homeschooling kids and things like that, it's the greatest gift you could give yourself.
Love that. So Tammy, is your team still active now?
It is. So not with me. I stepped out 5 years ago and handed the reins over to Bruce. And Bruce has got, he has got 2 admin and ISA, 2 agents, and himself.
Good for you. Good for you. So when you before you met Bruce, so you at that point going through a divorce, single mom, mega agent, rainmaker, how did you juggle all of those plates? You got a lot of dishes in the end. How did you do it?
Well, gosh, I was rookie of the year that first year. And I'll tell you, I'm not creative. And sometimes I've learned that that's actually a blessing in this business. And it's because I coach so many people that want to be creative. They want to learn how to do it differently than just following the basics and the fundamentals. And so when I got into this, again, I was a single mom. And by the way, I didn't get financial support from my ex-husband. None. No child support, no alimony, no anything. Wow. And so failure was not an option. Sure. And you know what? And we're friends now. And I'm so grateful, because it really forced me to get super uncomfortable and do things that I didn't necessarily want to do. And then I ended up mastering them because, every day I had a choice. I either could look at the kids and say, you know what, I'm not going to fail. This isn't going to happen. Or I could succumb to what, we all have We all have limiting beliefs. I mean, everybody has, I'm not going to say everybody because that's a limiting belief to even put out there. However, I mean, my phone weighed 400 pounds too. And by the way, it was a flip phone. And then it was a BlackBerry, right? And so, I too had those. It was that every time that happened to me, without understanding what even Bold has taught us now, because Bold wasn't around then,
Right.
I had to look at my kids, and they were my why. And, they were little. So, I mean, I had after school care. They were in Pee Wee baseball and, the things of that nature. And they were 2 boys, so I wanted to be that strong mom and show up. And I'll tell you, as far as juggling things, oh my gosh. I will tell you that my youngest son would say, he was the last one to get picked up at after school care. It still like pains me to this day. He makes a lot of fun out of it now. I mean, he's 23. And he was, I mean, I always was pulling in on 2 wheels, and he was the last one to get picked up. However, I was not late. I did get there, and somebody's got to get the
most important. Yeah.
And, I spent a lot of time. I was up, the kids went to bed at, 9 o'clock, 8:30, something like that. And there were so many nights I didn't go to bed until 2 o'clock, just doing flyers and following up on leads and entering things into my database and, just everything that they were teaching me to do. So I kind of go back to not being creative. And I basically I didn't start with Keller Williams. I started somewhere else. And I very quickly made an exit, if that gives you any idea where I was. Does that tell you where I was?
Yeah.
Okay. And I said,
I think we all figured out the other company that claims to have profit share.
That's right. That's right. I always say, why would you name a real estate company Exit? Anyway.
Well, they're just guiding people what they should be doing. They should be
right. That's right. And it worked for me. And so, I mean, when I came to Keller Williams, I literally, I walked in and I said, tell me what to do and tell me what to do now. And whatever they told me to do, I just did. I mean, and I'm not even kidding. I was just like, okay, so I have to call, expireds and I say, what? Okay. And that's what I did.
So Tammi, let's talk about that for a second, because it's no secret why you're successful. You're committed. You are committed through and through to the end result. Your big why was your kids. You were a single mom. You just said, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. Not everybody has that kind of mentality or mindset. They hide behind the shadows of those limiting beliefs of what, it's uncomfortable. You said it before. You were uncomfortable and you took action anyway. There's people on this call that are uncomfortable doing things. What advice do you want to give to those people they know what to do, they're just uncomfortable doing it, so they put it on the back burner, they never do it. What advice would you give to those?
Well, if you never get started, you'll never get finished. You'll never realize your dreams and your big life. And I believe that this is one of the greatest, if not the greatest career on the planet, because there's no limits. The only limits we have, Rich, are up here in ourselves. And that's proven every day based on what people do in this business. And I just choose to seize every single opportunity that I can because you know what? I love life. And this business has afforded a great life. And so I think when you do that, James Shaw says something, and it was funny. The first time I ever heard him say it was probably 2 years ago. And it's always sat with me. And he said, at some point, you have to care more about the people on the inside of your house than the people on the outside of your house. Now think about that. You have to care about the people that you support and the people that you care about more than you care about that stranger or somebody that you sold a house to 3 years ago being insulted because you call them. Call them. The worst thing they can say is no. And by the way, the best thing they could say is, oh my gosh, how the heck are you?
That's right. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So walk me through the experience too, because you've been so instrumental over the last, I'm going to say 3.5 years with never-ending referrals. If you've been saying to yourself, oh my God, she looks familiar, and you couldn't place out where in bold.
Oh, my hair is shorter.
Tammi's done, I don't know, 8 or 10 videos. She's part of the Never-Ending Referrals with Steve Schlater, who's my head coach, a Bold coach. And the two of them have partnered to rewrite Bold 2.0 and the lead generation. Everything you know about DTD2 happened because of Steve and Tammi. And she's right here, right now. What can you give without getting in trouble, can you give a little sneak peek of what they can expect in Bold Pivot, because most of my agents are in there, signed up already. What can they expect instead of DTD2? Are we looking at DTD4? What are we looking at?
We are, because when you looked at and you heard Gary talk about his 4 pivot points,
Right.
one of those pivot points was to double down on our leads. And, and I'll tell you, some of you've been through Bold. Embrace those bold laws right now, because those bold laws are guideposts to help you transform your thinking. And right now, if we do what we've always done, we'll get what we've always gotten. And right now, in a shift, when it's going to take us doubling down to uncover business because people have lost jobs and they no longer qualify, we have to change that perspective. And what we were doing coming into this might not be enough anymore. So we're going to be doing DTD4. So we're going to double down on those 2 letters of the alphabet. It'll be 4.
I'm really looking forward to it. I can't wait till next week when Bolt starts. We're looking forward to, especially to seeing you. I'm sure you're going to have some videos, new stuff in there. And we're really excited about it. So talk to me a little bit about, so agents, they all know what to do, Tammy. They're just not sometimes getting it done. We get paralyzed with fear. Like you said, you don't even watch the news anymore because there's nothing good on there, right? And no matter how many times we tell them, the conversation still persists around the virus. Now, we know that we can't be ignorant. It's out there. You know that my son has it. So this is a real concern. However, if we get consumed with the fear and we buy into this and we start living our life totally differently, we can go backwards. So what does their mindset need to be when the government or the states reopen up? And I think Georgia is opening up on Friday. Right. I think the state of Florida, I believe, is opening up next Friday, May 8th, I believe. I'm not sure.
Here too.
What should the agents expect, and what should they be doing at that point?
Well, the greatest thing that you can be doing right now is loving on your people, is caring about them. And I know that you've all heard that. That's what that's been our battle cry, really, since this happened, is to reach out to people and just do care calls and to check in. And my caution around that is we still do that. However, we do still actually need to be focusing on uncovering business, because no matter the market, and even in this COVID-19 market, there are people that have to sell. There are people that have to buy. And it's really our job to find ourselves the ability to get into conversations with those people so that we actually are able to help them. Because there's a lot of people out there that, in the midst of this, they have to sell and they need somebody who's educated enough to walk them through, how do I do this? How do I get my house on the market and even have people see my house? And by the way, there's so many ways to do it. One of the things that I had shared in my market center here, probably 4 weeks ago, and they're selling houses now and nobody's even going to see the houses, and we're essential. And so one of the things that you can do, are you essential?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And so there's 2 ways to do this with a seller, because right now, we still can uncover sellers. It's a great time to sell. It's a great time to buy. It's a great time to move up. A shifting market is, a way to sell while interest rates are low. And those upper end markets, the 400 or 500, 600, they take a bigger hit. And so they usually can actually make a gain, during a time like this. So we have to figure out and find those people. And so one of the ways that you can get somebody to agree, if you will, to putting their house on the market and overcoming the fear of showings, which is justified, is 2 things. If they'll allow you to come in the house, you go in, you do a super, super, super in-depth walking tour. And what I mean is, it's a walking tour of ceilings, the floor, the windows. It's opening up all of the closets. It's opening up all of the cabinets. It's going in the garage. It's everything that a buyer would absolutely have to see. And then you share with the seller, so here's what I'm going to do. When we put that house on the market in the multiple listing service, we're going to put some verbiage out there to any agent who has somebody interested in your home to please reach out to me first. And what I'm going to do then is I'm going to share this video with them, and I'm going to ask that they share it with the interested party. And if that person is still interested, then I'm going to ask them to drive by your house so they see the environment and the location and they're okay with everything around the house. And at that point, if they'd like to see the house, then we'll figure out how to do that. And what we're seeing here is they're buying them like they're not even sight unseen. Nobody's going in the house until inspections. And you could do that same thing via Zoom, right? You could send a Zoom link to a seller, educate them in advance, say, I'm going to walk you through this walking tour. I'm going to narrate. I'm going to ask you questions. I'm going to say, you know, would you please open that closet? And then I'm going to talk about it. So I'm going to showcase it like I would if I were there. And I'm going to record that. And then you do the same exact thing. And it's our role, guys, not to wake up, you know, 6 weeks from now and say, gosh, I sure wish I would have. It's our role to wake up and say, I sure am glad I did. And these are objections. And it's always been about how do we overcome the objection in a logical, sensible way that still honors and respects the fact that this is a health crisis that people need to be careful about.
You know what I love, what I heard, Tammi, what you said is you're using best practices, using safety, and you're overcoming the objections before they actually have them.
Yeah.
If you make that part of your standard and part of your policy of what you're doing as a responsible real estate agent and mega agent rainmaker, people are going to have business. And basically, you know, we've had this on our Bold call. We need to get agents back into we need to build a pipeline.
Yes.
So even if the person's not interested now, when we come from a place of contribution from our heart where we're really concerned about people, what can I do? What do you need? There's a lot of seniors out there that aren't able to get paper towels and necessities,
Right.
maybe even toilet paper, whatever. We help fill that void now. They'll remember us later. And that's the mind share. And James said on Shift, mind share leads to market share.
That's right.
Today's
Right.
mind share.
You know, and Rich, you know, one of the things that you all can do, an exercise that I have found to be, you know, really helpful with, you know, I've done so many of these calls, just attempting to help everybody be better and get moving is, you know, just take a piece of paper, write buyers and sellers on each side of a line that you draw down the middle, and go back to what I just said. Think about who the buyers are and who the sellers are that would have to sell in this market. And there are both. And usually all the sellers, by the way, you always do the sellers first because they usually can be buyers too. So it makes it a little easier.
Sure.
However, you know, the buyer list can be a little longer. Think of leases that are ending. You've got landlords that are not renewing leases or they're increasing rent, and it might be easier for somebody to buy. And then the other thing that I would have you do is make a list of all of the occupations right now that people are very, very fruitfully and employed in. I mean, like healthcare, delivery, big box stores, grocery, government work, post office, FedEx. You know, there's so many. They're not only employed, they're like working more than they ever have before. And so those folks still have the ability to get a loan until things change, right? The people that are furloughed or laid off get back to work. And so we've got to go after getting into conversation with the people that actually can transact business and nurture the ones that have been furloughed and maybe have an interest, and we'll keep them in the wings until that changes. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's safe to say that right now we're seeing less leads, higher quality probably.
Absolutely.
People that are in the market are very serious. They're not tire kickers. These are real buyers and sellers, just a lot less. So for the agents, there's one of two things have to change. And Gary says this all the time. We can change our actions or we can change our goals. And since goals are non-negotiable,
that's right.
Right. There's only one thing left to change, which are our actions, guys. So one last question, then I'm going to open it up to everybody else, Tammi.
Thanks.
So you and I are privileged in one respect, not only for working with Bold and working with John Prescott, Diana, Gary, and everybody. Yeah. However, we get to work with our spouses. You know, most people, I've worked with Debbie since I've met her, for the last 25 years. We've always worked together. Long before real estate, right? When my other industry. So a lot of people say, oh, I'd kill my spouse. I'd kill my significant other, my wife, my husband. And I don't know. I just don't feel that way. Debbie and I have always worked together. And you and Bruce work together. Yeah. What's your feeling on that?
So, you know, we work really well together also. Now, it's not to say that there weren't challenges a little bit. You know, when he first joined me in the business, you know, obviously, I think that good marriages are usually yin yang.
Right.
And we're exactly that same thing. We are definitely yin yang. And I had a specific way of doing things, right? I had standards in place. I had my operating procedure manual, if you will, all together. And he came in and he wanted, just kind of like turn things upside down and do things differently. And so we did have some challenges with that, not anything horrible. However, I mean, we had to have some, fierce conversations, if you will, around the way that we were going to run things and what would work. And the truth of the matter is, there's really three perceptions to everything. There's yours, mine, and ours. And so, you really have to, when you're working at home now with spouses, you're going to have that same thing. And by the way, there might be like 5 perceptions because you all might have double personalities going on right now.
Sure.
For sure. And so, essentially people who have never had to work with their spouse are working with their spouse now. And you have to see it from both perceptions. And so when we start talking about giving yourself the gift of a schedule, well, sometimes, your lead generation time right now might have to be broken into 2 different areas of the day so that you're honoring the fact that your spouse needs time as well, because you're balancing kids, you're balancing homeschooling and feeding and caring and all those things. So, this is an opportunity for people to come together and get tighter and really learn what it is that, makes a team, because that's what a marriage is, right? It is a team.
Absolutely. And it's funny thing is, Debbie used to say that it says the same thing. There's your perception, my perception, and our perception. The only thing that she was different about, she said the only perception that matters was hers. So
Well,
she's just a little bit different. So
because
and so long as
think that we value yours.
yeah, so long as I said yes, dear, things went smooth, right?
Right.
Yeah. The truth of the matter is, there's no better time. We got married because we love each other. The same reason why everybody else gets married. We love each other. And if you can't work with your spouse, you need to find reasons to bond together, to get closer. And just having a common interest in real estate, being able, for me, that's a blessing to be able to work with my spouse. And I'm sure for you too. So guys, this is your time. You have one of my idols and influencers on the phone, in Tammi. I will tell you, do you want to, I'm going to tell a short story about you, Tammi, and then I'm going to open up for questions. So do you remember one of the Bold Coaches training? Agents say they get nervous on listing presentations or whatever when they're doing their lead gen in front of other people.
Yeah.
Explain to them what we have to go through as a Bold Coach. When we do, how high is the anxiety and stress in the room when we're presenting, and whether Diana was in there or Gary Keller's in there, John Prescott, just your peers. You're presenting to 50 other Bold Coaches, and you've practiced, the material, and you get up there and it's time for you to talk. What happens?
That is a lot of pressure, people. That's what I'll say. Wow, gosh. So, that's a great question. Yeah, we are expected to kind of on the fly, hey, Rich, why don't you go stand up and teach the listing presentation like you would in the Bold room. And there you are in front of 50 Bold Coaches, Diana Kokoska, who wrote it, John Prescott, and it's a challenge. And I'll tell you, we have weekly phone calls, and at any given moment, I remember Rich when Diana would jump on the calls and she would just launch into a role play, and she would just call your name, and you were expected to do that.
You better be ready.
And you better be ready. And it made me super, super uncomfortable. I mean, oh my gosh. I mean, there's no way that it didn't make me uncomfortable. And I remember getting on those calls probably the first 6-8 months of being a Bold Coach, and literally just like sweating bullets, like, please don't call on me. Please don't call my name, And so it goes back to what we say is, practice and role play, right, with somebody. And this is a great opportunity to do that. And now I look back and I go, that was one of the best things that has ever happened to me, because that pressure and not knowing when I would be called out to actually do it. And I actually did the entire listing presentation in front of all the Bold Coaches, and Diana, made me a better person. It made me develop better script habits. I've learned how I learn best. And I literally have a process on how I internalize, because you internalize and then you spit it out the way that you talk.
Tammi, I can't help but think the more uncomfortable these things made us when we were newer as bold coaches
Yeah.
has a lot to do with the comfort zone that we've built, and now that's called growth, and now we're stretching. So what do we need to do today to be uncomfortable that will accommodate tomorrow's growth? And for you, the point I was making is when you did that listing presentation, there was another bold coach, Amber Rutherford, up there.
Yep.
They split it. They
Yep.
rolled switch
Yeah,
in the middle.
the seller.
It was the most impressive listing presentation. We've all seen Diana's listing presentation in the video. She was the master. And
Yep.
what you did up there didn't compliment it, it superseded it. And I
Wow.
was like, oh my God, you just won. That was like 3 years ago. I think it was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
You just won my heart. And I said, oh my God. So now you weren't a head coach at the time.
Yeah.
My guess is that had a lot to do with you becoming a bold head coach, because you just nailed it. And I'm sure you were nervous. We couldn't tell.
Mhm.
So you just won my heart at that time. Just want to let you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, you know what, here's the thing. In 2009, when Bold started, Bruce and I, let's see, he joined me in March, because you remember he lost his job the day after I came back from a family reunion. So he joined me in March, and Bold actually came out that year in October and came to Charlotte. And it's funny because Steve Schlueter is, my co-coach and my business partner in Evergreen Referrals, and he was my first Bold coach. And so here we were figuring out how to pay $800 a piece for both of us to go. So $1,600, and we went and we got that listing presentation, and I practiced it and practiced it and practiced it, and it worked. And my conversion rate went through the roof. And that's part of why I knew it so well. And John knew I knew it well. So
yeah. He had a lot of faith in you. However, I don't know that anybody was expecting you to be as great as you were.
Yeah.
You just were atomic that day. So kudos to you. Guys, what questions do you have for Tammi? We really didn't even get into the coaching, the training company that you bought and opened and things like that, what that looks like. So she's a business owner besides a real estate business with Bruce, her husband and partner, her bold coaching business, her instructional business. So she owns multiple businesses with multiple streams of income. What questions does everybody have?
And I'll tell you, they're all being impacted. I mean, because they're all related to real estate, right? So the training company that we own in the Carolinas, it's in North and South Carolina, and we are in 38 of 44 market centers. And the market centers subscribe to a certain number of training classes per year. And then what I've done is the agents that are in the Carolinas, they've got to have a certain level of production. They have to have admin help, and they have to go through Train the Presenter 1 and the advanced training workshop. And then they can get on this whole journey of becoming a great instructor. And so I have a lot of passion around developing people. And so many of us actually came up through that company before I bought it, and Holly still owned it. And there's so many bold coaches that are in our region. And last summer I auditioned and became an international master faculty. And so, I think my passion, honestly, Rich, is allowing people opportunities so that they can realize the opportunities that are in this company, because this company is a land of opportunity far beyond just selling real estate, right? And yet we still have to sell real estate at a high level to open up those opportunities. However, it's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, and you think about it now that you mention it, how many bold coaches actually came out of your school? I'm going to say there's got to be about 5 or 6 of the bold coaches came from your
James. It was
Bill Middleton,
James, Bill, J. Michael Manley, Molly, Mark Ramsey, myself. I'm trying to think who else.
Are you seeing a pattern of success here, guys?
Yeah. Well, the best way to, I hope I don't lose my voice next week, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Please, favorite.
The best way to master anything is to teach it. I mean, anything that you want to master, teach it, because you have to study and internalize at such a deep level to regurgitate it to people that's how you master it.
Being uncomfortable so you can be comfortable later on.
That's right.
So what questions do you have? We have enough time for a couple questions.
Sure.
I promised Tammi we're going to be 30 minutes and then 10 minutes of Q&A. So what questions do you have, everyone?
I'll answer anything.
So I've got a question. Tammi, you talked a lot about opportunities, and clearly in a pivoting market, opportunities present itself like this. However, we all see these opportunities on a day-to-day basis, but we still have these little voices in the back of our head, that fear that prevents us from taking those opportunities.
Yeah.
You clearly push through and take those opportunities. So what advice do you have for us on how to push back that fear? What do you do to push through that fear to take and seize those opportunities?
Well, that's a great question, Jim. So, one of the it's never that you don't have the fear, it's that you don't let fear rule you. And I think it almost becomes a matter of us getting so in tune with ourselves that you kind of look fear in the face and feed it a suck it sandwich. I mean, seriously. And so, I mean, you just have to say, no, you're not gonna hold me back. And I read a lot of books on successful people. So I like to study successful people because there's patterns. And the pattern was that, they did their research. They didn't jump into things without knowing or doing enough research to be educated. However, they didn't let fear stop them. And I did make some decisions, by the way, while I've been in this company. I took positions and Rich, I did that while I was Bold coach in one case, and it was not a good decision for me. And, and it took me several months. And in fact, there's an exercise that we do in Bold around the 5-box exercise at step 1. And Rich, you know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And we did that at Bold Coach training once a year. We all get together for a week. And I was not happy with a decision that I had made, and it revealed itself while I was doing that. And I came home and corrected it. So I think that, you have to educate yourself as much as you can. You have to feel the fear and do it anyway, and break through the fear, because that becomes your new floor. It's not a ceiling anymore. And then there's new fears that are in front of that. And you have to develop that muscle of not letting fear stop you.
Great question, Jim.
Excellent. Thank you. I think I'm going to go grab a suck it sandwich for lunch.
So that comes from Jen Sincero's book, You Are a Badass. So I said that on a national call. However, I love that book. And that's what she says. She says, when you're faced with fear, feed it a suck it sandwich. And it just stuck in my head.
All right, one more question, guys, then we're going to wrap up. Who's got the last question?
You guys are awesome.
Is that it?
Hi, Tammi. How are you doing?
Thank
you so much. So being what's going on in the world right now, what's working for you, what will you continue using after the pandemic is over that works?
Oh my gosh, like technology. I firmly believe we won't go back to the way things were. I think we've just proven that we can do things more efficiently and effectively. And, one of the things that keeps coming to mind for me is when I got into real estate, when we were doing a listing consultation, it was a 2-step process, right? We used to go out and see the home and view the home and take notes. We would go back and then do our market analysis, and then we would come back and sit with the seller. And at some point we got going so fast that we skipped that step entirely. And if you think about it, it's kind of crazy that we are doing a market analysis on something that we haven't even seen. And so now, I mean, when I think about that, I mean, how many of you on this call have ever done that, where you did a market analysis and you walked into the house and you went, oh, wow, this is like straight out of the 70s. Didn't see that coming. And your market analysis is way off. And so one of two things happens. You either walk out without the listing, or you walk out with an overpriced listing because you were there to build rapport and win the seller. And oftentimes we're not articulate enough to have that challenging conversation right then and there. And so now I think that you can send out a Zoom link to a seller coming out of this and say, here's what we're going to do. We've got some fantastic technology, and I'd really like for my market analysis to be really in depth and spot on. And so I'm going to send this link to you, and we're going to tour your house together, and you can point out things that you would like for me to know. I can ask you some questions, and then we'll get together this evening and we'll meet to go over an in-depth market analysis. And now we're going to be educated. So I just think there's huge opportunity in what this has proven to us.
Great job. So Tammi, one last question come over. So what was the name of the book you mentioned again?
You Are a Badass.
So there's no mistake in that. Hopefully Kim got that down. That was Kim's question. Did anybody have anything else? Otherwise, we're going to wrap up right now, guys. Tammi, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Anything you need, you got it. Just ask for me.
Oh,
You've got anything, whatever you need.
Thank you. I appreciate you. I love you. And thank you all for spending some time with me and letting me see your beautiful faces. That's the coolest thing of this whole Zoom thing is
Yes,
I know so many names from social media, and now I actually see you, which is really cool.
Absolutely. So just let you guys know, tomorrow we have Kara Mall, a transformational map coach. We'll have another fantastic call tomorrow. And next Tuesday, know that Mo Anderson is our guest. I get to interview her for 60 minutes.
Whoa. I'd like to be a fly on the wall on that one.
60 minutes with Mo next week. So that's
Wow.
7 days from today. That'll be right before Bold. We'll have Mo and right into Bold. So guys, everybody take care. Tammi, thank you. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you. See you, everybody.
Take care.